Hello and welcome to chapter 10 of our journey through Wuthering Heights. And just again, a reminder to like and subscribe and do the notification bell and leave a comment if you like as well. You'll be very welcome. But yeah, a lot of people aren't subscribing, as is often the way with these things. So I'd appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Thank you. So without any more announcements, let's go through into the chapter itself. It's another quite a long chapter. So buckle up and brace yourself. So we've got quite a lot going on here. So following on from chapter 10, where we've got a little bit of the break-in proceedings. Well, it turns out that Lockwood, he's got a little bit poorly, and a charming introduction to a hermit's life. And this is, do you remember this idea that he's come to get away from everything? This is what he means by that. And also there was a certain romantic appeal about being a hermit and getting away from reality. They like that as a concept. But he says hermit, but the irony is that a hermit would normally live in a cave, and Lockwood's living in this luxurious mansion. So again, it says a lot about how pampered he is and what he's used to, doesn't it, really, there? So remember, again, he's an unreliable narrator. Remember to read between the lines a bit with what Bronte puts in, what Lockwood's actually saying in his narration as well, and the judgments and values that he has. So we have, oh, these bleak winds and bitter northern skies and impassable roads and dilatory country surgeons. So he's moaning about how primitive it all is here in where he's staying. Oh, and this dearth of the human physiognomy, very hard to pronounce. It's actually really a silent G, I think, like in gnome, but I always end up saying the G. It's very hard to pronounce. But that's that thing about, remember, there was an idea about the appearance of the face, what it said about the character. So we've got a lot of that here as well. It's not real, there's no substance to it, but it's what was widely believed at the time. And there's another mention of Dr. Kenneth as well. So Dr. Kenneth has been in and said that he's too ill. I do not expect to be out of doors till spring. What's happening really is Bronte's making a continued device for Lockwood to be told the story of Wuthering Heights by Nelly, isn't he, really? That's what's happening. That's what Bronte's doing. So she's done that deliberately. Now, Heathcliff is always portrayed as being very misanthropic, as in he hates humanity, and that he's miserable or even wicked or evil. He's often depicted like that. But when you actually look at the text closely, like we're doing here, there's some little odd things about Heathcliff. Here we go. Mr. Heathcliff has just honoured me with a call. Now, I think that's meant to be sarcastic. About 7 days ago, he sent me a brace of grouse, the last of the season. So he sounds like he's moaning that these aren't the best ones that he could have had, probably, is what he's thinking here. Scoundrel. He is not altogether guiltless in this illness of mine, and that I had a great mind to tell him. So, first of all, he's blaming Heathcliff for the fact that he's so ill. Again, with Lockwood, remember, look carefully what he's saying. Whose fault, really, that he went wandering around with a complete sense of arrogance and a lack of experience of the area, and then he got himself in trouble, and then he wasn't really welcome anywhere, and of course he's out in the weather, and it's his fault, really, actually. But anyway, he likes to blame other people, like he did with that lady in that failed love affair. And this time, of course, we have a pejorative there, scoundrel, about Heathcliff. But alas, how could I offend a man? So he's one of these people who thinks, oh, I'll give him a piece of my mind, and then he doesn't say anything because he's too cowardly, he's too weak to do that. And Heathcliff would make mincemeat out of Lockwood, because Lockwood is quite wimpy, relatively speaking, isn't he? But how can I offend a man who was charitable enough to sit at my bedside a good hour and talk on some other subject than pills and draughts, blisters and leeches? So actually, for all of the negative depictions of Heathcliff as a character, and he does obviously have many negative qualities and many antagonistic qualities, and he is violent and dangerous, abusive, all of those qualities. But strangely, he's come to spend an hour sitting by Lockwood's bedside. This is not something that appears in adaptations of it, so because it doesn't quite fit in. So it makes me wonder about, again, remember, we've got unreliable narrators. A lot of the things we're hearing, not necessarily completely true. has Heathcliff really done all the things he's done? Is actually prejudice about him because of his ethnicity as well that could be connected to that, and he came in as an outsider. There's a lot going on. I don't think it necessarily going to excuse everything that he's ever done on it, but remember, everything we're hearing is filtered through Lockwood and Nelly. So, and also some other narrators as well, but they're the two main ones. So he's got an idea of he wants Nelly to finish her tale as well. And then we've got a nice little recap here. These older novels would have been published, as a bit of context, they would have been published in separate volumes. So they didn't have the technology to print massive books like this all in one go like we can. However, their paper quality was much better, and antiquarian books actually have lasted a very long time. Anyway, it's something I have a bee in my bonnet about, because we've all had books where all the pages fall out really easy because they're made incredibly cheaply in the modern era. But we have a little recap. Yes, I remember her hero had run off and never been heard of for 3 years, and the heroine was married. I'll ring. She'll be delighted to find me capable of talking cheerfully. I wouldn't count on it, Lockwood. That's really a bit ironic there as well. So Mrs. Dean. Then, so she's very focused on about him taking his medicine as well. But he wants her to tell the story. Draw your knitting out of your pocket. That will do. Now continue the history of Mr. Heathcliff from where you left off to the present day. Did he finish his education on the continent and come back a gentleman? Or did he get a sizar's place at college? Or escape to America and earn honours by drawing blood from his foster country? Or make a fortune more promptly on the English highways? All of this is really interesting. There's loads of stuff going on there. In the novel, we're going to find out Heathcliff disappears and comes back, but we don't know what he did in the time between. Nelly actually says that. She says he may have done a little in all these vocations. So all these different potential jobs and things that he did. Did he run away and he's finished his education, so he managed to be educated somehow in kind of formal education in Europe somewhere, and then came back a gentleman? Did he get a special, essentially a scholarship at a university? Possibly, might be when it says a college, so probably a university. Or escape to America and earn honours by drawing blood from his foster country. So we're thinking of the era of the American Revolutionary Wars and the Anglo-American Wars. We're thinking of that kind of era. So he could have gone off into the army and he's made money that way somehow. But maybe fighting for the Americans, because again, who knows? That's what he's saying, drawing blood from his foster country. It could be the other way around, so who knows? But anyway, the idea of he went there and he was fighting, not necessarily maybe betraying the country, but anyway, there's definitely military as a possibility as well. Or make a fortune more promptly on the English highways. I'm the dandy highwayman. That's an old song reference there. Anyway, but he would be a highwayman, stand and deliver, essentially. So that's another possibility, just as a highway robber, effectively. So Nelly doesn't know. I stated before that I didn't know how he gained his money. Neither am I aware of the means he took to raise his mind from the savage ignorance into which it was sunk. So there's two strands to this. One is, where did he get his money from? And the other mystery, which doesn't get as emphasised as much really, is how come he seems so refined and intelligent. So it's all very ambiguous and we don't know. And because the novel, Bronte has set it in, it's effectively like a little bubble universe. And when Bronte was a child, she and her sisters and her brother actually used to all write poetry and stories set in this fantasy world called Gondal. And she actually, Emily Bronte also wrote some poems when she was older set in that universe as well. And that was like, it's like a fantasy kingdom. It's like a fantasy world. It's not quite Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, not quite far down that route, but it is fantasy and it is castles and princesses and things. It's all that kind of jailers and all those kind of fantasy tropes that you're kind of used to, but not really high fantasy so much. But so Wuthering Heights, I think, is very similar to that because it's got this little pocket universe going on, and when things happen outside of this pocket universe, we don't know what happens. Nelly is also, as a servant, she's not very mobile. She can't leave the area particularly easily. She hasn't got loads of money. Where else would she go? Her whole universe is there anyway. And Lockwood's obviously an outsider. Heathcliff is an outsider. But as I say, we don't know. We don't know how Heathcliff has progressed so much. And we're probably not meant to know. But it's fun to speculate. I think there's a few clues in the text which we'll get to when we see it as well. So She recalls her story, and to my agreeable disappointment, she behaved infinitely better than I dared to expect. So she got to Thrushcross Grange. It was not the thorn bending to the honeysuckles, but the honeysuckles embracing the thorn. So there's a nice metaphor here, a very nice nature metaphor Bronte uses for Nelly to describe how the Lintons were much kind of softer people, and they effectively acquiesced and accommodate Catherine in all of her haughty excesses, as we've heard about in the past as well, who can be ill-natured and bad-tempered when they encounter neither opposition nor indifference. Because the Lintons were so passive, she didn't really need to get in a mood about anything. This is Catherine, you know. And he concealed it from her, but if he ever heard me answer sharply or saw any other servant grow cloudy at some imperious orders of hers, he would show his trouble by a frown of displeasure that never darkened on his own account. So you can see they've really accommodated and indulged Catherine's behaviour. This is because Linton's obviously, Edgar Linton is in love with her, as we know, and they're getting married, or actually are married by this point in the narrative as well. Not to grieve a kind master, I learned to be less touching. For the space of half a year, the gunpowder lay as harmless as sand because no fire came near to explode it. So we're getting nice simile there, getting lots of nice figure language to help describe. Thrushcross Grange was pretty calm at that point. It's going to change very soon. Seasons of gloom and silence now and then. They were respected with sympathising silence by her husband, who ascribed them to an alteration in her constitution produced by a perilous illness. So Edgar Linton makes excuses for why Catherine would go moody sometimes. It sounds a bit like depression. She's probably depressed at the disappearance of Heathcliff still, and that would hit her in waves. It sounds a bit like that, doesn't it, really? I believe I may assert that they were really in possession of deep and growing happiness. So they were getting on pretty well. Things were going quite well in Thrushcross Grange, in the household there. And we have this return now. Nelly, is that you? It was a deep voice and foreign in tone. Foreign could mean in this era just not familiar. Foreign, it could imply maybe a little bit of an accent or a different, or just a different voice. Heathcliff would have a different accent by now if he's educated as well. He probably has lost his accent. There's implication there of that as well. Yet there was something in the manner of pronouncing my name which made it sound familiar. So there's a degree of suspense here. I distinguished a tall man dressed in dark clothes with dark face and hair. So again, emphasis on darkness associated with Heathcliff. You do not know me. Look, I'm not a stranger. I remember the eyes. What? I cried, uncertain to regard him as a worldly visitor, and raised my hand in amazement. What, you come back? Is it really you? Is it? Yes, Heathcliff, he replied. So he's come back. He's come back. It's like something else. It's like Pokemon. It's like he's evolved. What's this? Heathcliff is evolving. Boom, 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 boom. And now he's Gentleman Heathcliff. It needs a snappier name than that if he was a Pokemon. But you get the point. And he wants to see Catherine, some person from Gimmerton. Gimmerton's like the local village. How will she take it? So what should we do? The surprise bewilders me. It will put her out of her head. And you are Heathcliff, but altered. Nay, there's no comprehending it. Have you been for a soldier? So again, there's a little bit of implication there. Go and carry my message. He doesn't answer, does he? But I think that could be the implication. Now, again, more context. In Bronte's time, soldiers aren't as kind of high profile and as favourably considered as they are in our time. Obviously, there's more respect in society for the armed forces, for the army. We have Remembrance Day. We have all of these things obviously in the UK as well. And we think about these Armed Forces Day, those kind of things. Well, in Bronte's time, there was a lot of respect for the Navy. The Navy, you could get promoted on merit. That's how the Navy worked. But the army was a bit more corrupt in Bronte's time. If you were rich, you could pay for your commission, which meant you could join the army at a higher rank. So you could be, let's be frank, as thick as two short planks, but as long as you were posh and rich, you could pay your way into the army, or the family would pay your way into the army, and it was a good way of getting rid of you, getting rid of a career. It's not to say there were talented people in the army at the time, but they were hampered by the innate corruption in the system. Now, I think that's why Heathcliff would suit. There's some opportunities for him to make some money, to progress, to maybe go up the ranks. Maybe with money he's earned, he could pay and bribe his way up as well, is a possibility. So it seems plausible. But people used to hate it when there was a garrison near their town, because the soldiers, they were always really rough men who caused havoc wherever they stayed. So the soldiers weren't always welcome around the country at this era. So I think it all fits, doesn't it? Wuthering Heights rose above this silvery vapour, but our old house was invisible. It rather dips down on the other side. So we've got, again, that interesting framing of Wuthering Heights. It's high, but it's also kind of hellish as well. So it subverts some of your expectations there as well. So when he returns, there's some interesting things here, because for polite English society, there's a bit of a malfunction, because when Nelly tells Edgar Linton that there's a visitor coming in, and it's Heathcliff, you recollect him, so he used to live at Mr. Earnshaw's. What, the gypsy, the ploughboy? So look at the labels that they use to describe him. Why did he not say so, Catherine? There's a bit of a malfunction here, because the class system can't quite cope with what's happened, because in that era there's not a lot of social progression for anybody, really. It's very hard to move outside of your class. So what Bronte's got here is we see a kind of breakdown in that, where the normal rules are now going to look, it's going to be kind of corrupted. It just doesn't really work properly, and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, it's best if I just show you. She'll be sadly grieved to hear she was nearly heartbroken when he ran off. I guess his return will make a jubilee to her, so that sounds very kind of hyperbolic, like a jubilee. Oh, Edgar, she panted, flinging her arms around his neck. Oh, Edgar, darling, Heathcliff's come back, he is. And she tightened her embrace to a squeeze. Again, another thing that Bronte presents here as being a bit unusual is look at the enthusiastic language, exclamatory sentences. Look at all the epizeuxis, the repetition of the name there. So remember, they're married, and she's really happy about this other guy returning, who she was very close to. Awkward, I think, is one word we can use to sum up this. Well, what cried her husband, goes, don't strangle me for that. He never struck me as such a marvellous treasure. There is no need to be frantic. So, yeah, obviously Edgar Linton can't see the excitement here. I know you didn't like him, yet for my sake you must be friends now. Shall I tell him to come up? Here, he said, into the parlour. Now, that's where you'd receive a gentleman, a refined, civilised guest even, sorry. Where else, she asked. He looked vexed and suggested the kitchen is a more suitable place for him, which is, again, that would be associated with servants, obviously, like Nelly. No, she added after a while, I cannot sit in the kitchen. Set 2 tables here and one for your master and Miss Isabella, being gentry. So there's a class thing going on. So Catherine is again acknowledging that class. So gentry means they're effectively like low-key nobility, really, like local nobility, low-key nobility, but higher in social class and status than Catherine would have been as an Earnshaw. And Edgar Linton's going to be a bit of a surprise here. You bid him step up, he said, addressing me, and Catherine tried to be glad without being absurd. The whole household need not witness the sight of you welcoming a runaway servant as a brother. So this chapter's brilliant for themes of class here. It's a great chapter anyway. He followed my guidance without wasted words, and I ushered him into the presence of the master and mistress, whose flushed cheeks betrayed signs of warm talking. So it looks like they've had a bit of an argument while Nelly's been out of the room. The ladies glowed with another feeling when her friend appeared at the door. I'm adding my own sound effects there. This is very awkward, isn't it? Really awkward situation we have here. Then I was amazed more than ever to behold the transformation of Heathcliff. He had grown a tall, athletic, well-formed man, beside whom my master seemed quite slender and youth-like. His upright carriage suggested the idea of his having been in the army. So I think we've got 2 clues now about this, or 3 arguably. It does suggest Heathcliff has probably been in the army and somehow progressed through the ranks and been profitable in some fashion, hasn't he? Something's happened. So he's completely transformed, and now he looks like a gentleman. This is what I mean about the class system of the time. Can't handle this rapid social progression. It looked intelligent and retained no marks of former degradation. A half-civilised ferocity lurked yet in the depressed brows and eyes full of black fire. So again, we've got the physiognomy, we've got the black fire connotations there of that. But it was subdued, so he's more civilised now. His manner was even dignified. So again, look at the lexical choices that we've got here. Quite divested of roughness, though too stern for grace. But he's much more refined. So he still looks a bit angry. He's still looking a bit dangerous. But he's much more polished and refined. And I also answer Heath, especially if it be anything which I have a part, I shall stay an hour or two willingly. So the speech that Bronte gives him is now more polished and refined and gentlemanly and civil. So he speaks like a gentleman. Took a seat opposite Catherine, who kept her gaze fixed on him, married woman, as if she feared he would vanish were she to remove it. He did not raise his to her often. A quick glance now and then sufficed, but it flashed back each time more confidently the undisguised delight he drank from hers. That's a nice metaphor, isn't it, as well? So we've said before that Heathcliff and Catherine have this incredible bond. They have this incredible link, this transcendent love, and you can see signs of that connection here as well, particularly with these metaphorical choices. I heard of your marriage, Cathy, not long since, and while I waited in the article, I meditated this plan, just to have one glimpse of your face, a stare of surprise, perhaps some pretended pleasure. And then he wants to settle his score with Hindley as well. So he's staying at Wuthering Heights. Mr. Earnshaw invited him. This is all really interesting as well, actually. We will get to that soon. I gave a few sentences of commendation to Heathcliff, and he, either for a headache or a pang of envy, began to cry. So I got up and left him. So that's Edgar Linton is really... What use is it praising Heathcliff to him, I ask? So Catherine praising Heathcliff upsets Edgar Linton because he's such a wimp, effectively. As lads, they had an aversion to each other, and Heathcliff would hate just as much to hear him praised. It's human nature. See, Nelly, she is a confidant. She is a wise character. She's framed there. She's speaking sense a lot of the time there. And we have, you may, however, fall out at last over something of equal consequence to both sides, and then those who turn weak are very capable of being as obstinate as you. So Nelly cautions, be careful with this situation because it could lead to animosity between you two. It's not a good path to go down. No, I tell you, I have such faith in Linton's love that I believe I might kill him and he wouldn't wish to retaliate. So hyperbole there, but it does say a lot about Catherine's relationship with Edgar Linton. You know, who's the boss here? Like, definitely. And it's quite cruel language as well, isn't it? And it does show a lot of how superficial that love is. Like, it's just because Linton really loves her. That's all it's really built on, and she likes the flattery of it and the convenience of it. But really, she's got the hots for Heathcliff. I advised her to value him the more for his affection. Then, about Heathcliff, he is reformed in every respect, apparently. Quite a Christian, offering the right hand of fellowship to his enemies all around. That's why he's staying. Again, it's a good theme for, we talked about Christianity in the novel as well, but again, the idea of Heathcliff. So that's the to be following kind of Christian values of forgiveness. So he's not only a kind of more refined gentleman, he also seems to be not necessarily religious, but at least living according to the kind of tenets of Christianity of the time as well. So when Heathcliff goes in, there was some... So we get this from Catherine, actually. This is Catherine, because Nelly wasn't there at the when they're having tea. She was in and out of the room. So Catherine is telling Nelly... This is very complicated, obviously, how the narration works in this novel. So we're hearing what else has happened. So we're finding out about stuff at Wuthering Heights as well. So Hindley playing cards. Heathcliff joined them. My brother lost some money to him. Here we go, you see. And finding him plentifully supplied, he requested that he could come again in the evening, to which he consented. So gambling. This is the way that Heathcliff is going to get some power over Hindley here as well. Money. He means to offer liberal payment for permission to lodge at the Heights, and doubtless my brother's covetousness will prompt him to accept the terms. He was always greedy, though what he grasps with one hand he flings away with the other. So Hindley continues to decline. He's drinking, he's gambling. There's plenty of opportunities here for Heathcliff to exploit him, and presumably this could be the similar way that Heathcliff has earned loads of money as well. It could be through gambling. It could have been through blackmail and earning his way. Maybe he did progress in the army and he became an officer somehow. So we don't necessarily know exactly how Heathcliff's become so wealthy and he's gone up the social ladder, but I think there's enough in this chapter to give us some clear indications of where his money's come from, where his refinements come from. I think it seems reasonably safe to say, doesn't it, really? Catherine, good night, I'm an angel. Yeah, careful squeezing that big head through the door, Catherine. There, so she is very conceited, but she thinks she's wonderful. But of course, what she's doing is actually it's corrupt herself, isn't it? And she's betraying her own husband, and she clearly loves Heathcliff more. This is not good. This is not going to bode well. In this self-complacent conviction, she departed. Nelly's got the same opinion as I do there about it. Heathcliff, Mr. Heathcliff, I should say in future. So this is an honorific, Mr. Heathcliff, because he's a gentleman now. So Nelly's narration, as Bronte's constructed it, we're very clear. He's now Mr. Heathcliff. You can't just call him Heathcliff. He's a higher social status. He's higher social status than Nelly. He's a gentleman, so which means he's a man of money and probably property. Well, he definitely will be a man of property very soon as well. So we have his new source of trouble sprang from the not anticipated misfortune of Isabella Linton evincing a sudden irresistible attraction towards the tolerated guest. So here's a twist. Isabella Linton, she has the hots for Heathcliff as well. So she's only 18. Her brother, who loved her tenderly, was appalled at this fantastic preference, leaving aside the degradation of an alliance with a nameless man. So that means Heathcliff has no kind of aristocratic background. He's got no kind of established family name or wealthy. And he is effectively nameless in a way because he's just Heathcliff. Like Madonna, he doesn't have a surname. That's his kind of how he's known. And the degradation of an alliance with a nameless man and the possible fact that his property in default of heirs male might pass into such a one's power. So the way that it worked in those days, that means that were Isabella to marry Heathcliff and Edgar Linton and Catherine have no child, no male child, then the way that the laws worked, because it's all kind of patriarchal, this is another context point, Heathcliff would inherit Edgar Linton's property. He would become... So that's quite a big deal, really, when you think about it. But of course, this also foreshadows what we know happens later on in the novel, because Lockwood's living at Thrushcross Grange and Heathcliff owns it. So by reading it now, you're thinking, okay, so I think I'm getting an idea of how possibly Heathcliff would have ended up owning both of these huge properties. So let's continue. Then what did I pick here? We've gone for... Oh no, wept the young lady, you wished me away because you knew I liked to be there. So there's some squabbling between Isabella and Catherine. Catherine's obviously married. Isabella isn't. There's no real reason why she couldn't be attracted to Heathcliff, of course. So you're a dog in the manger, Cathy, and desire no one to be loved but yourself. You are an impertinent little monkey. I like that exclamatory pejorative there, to show their hostility to each other. It's impossible that you can covet the admiration of Heathcliff, that you consider him an agreeable person. So this, a gentleman, even Isabella's got the hots for him now. She'd never think about it before. He might love me if you would let him. Nelly, she wants Nelly to say what Heathcliff is. An unreclaimed creature without refinement, without cultivation, an arid wilderness of furze and whinstone. I'd as soon as put that little canary into the park on a winter's day as recommend you to bestow your heart on him. So again, there's natural imagery in this chapter here as well. So we had the canary. We also, I suppose you could even count the monkey reference. But we've got the idea of Heathcliff being like the wild moors, and she's like a refined canary that would be very vulnerable on a winter's day. So again, a deliberate contrast. They're antithetical. They can never be together because they're so different. Pray don't imagine that he concerns depths of benevolence and affection beneath a stern exterior. He's not a rough diamond, a pearl-containing oyster of a rustic. He's a fierce, pitiless wolfish. Great predatory connotations, again, more animal references as well. He'd crush you like a sparrow's egg, Isabella. A really good, violent simile there. If he found you a troublesome child. I know he couldn't love a Linton. Yet he'd be quite capable of marrying your fortune and expectations. So really, everything's being foreshadowed here, isn't it? There's my picture, and I'm his friend. She's saying, Catherine, there's a lot of jealousy. This is fueled by jealousy. She's got a point, though. There's a point about how he is, and actually, as that turns out to be true, is even more of a point. He's a bird of bad omen, no mate for you. And more animal references there as well. Honest people don't hide their deeds. How has he been living? How has he got rich? Why is he staying at Wuthering Heights, the house of a man he abhors? So Bronte uses there a series of rhetorical questions. We don't know. So it does add to the idea of Heathcliff as a villain, because we don't know how he made all of his money, do we? So that's interesting. They sit up all night together, continuing, and Hindley has been borrowing money on his land and does nothing but play and drink. So again, we said about Hindley and the gambling. I'd highlighted this, but it's Joseph, so I don't know if I was doing it just for a laugh. Tells Dame Catherine how her father's gold runs into his pocket, and her father's son gallops down to Broad Road while he flees afore to open packs. What are you going on about, Joseph? But it's essentially Heathcliff making money off of Hindley. But that's all that really strong dialect there. The day after, there was a justice meeting at the next town. So Edgar Linton, because he is local gentry, he is the local magistrate, because he's the richest, poshest person in the area, he has the authority, he has a legal position as well. He has to attend court, essentially like a judge, you know. She did laugh as she saw Heathcliff pass the window. So Edgar Linton's away, and there's a really... Catherine is horrible here. She really humiliates Isabella. My poor little sister-in-law is breaking her heart by mere contemplation of your physical and moral beauty. No, Isabella, you shan't run off. This is really like playground stuff, isn't it? It's worse than that. With feigned playfulness. We were quarrelling like cats about you, Heathcliff, and I was fairly beaten in protestations of devotion and admiration. And moreover, I was informed that if I would have the manners to stand aside, my rival, as she will have herself to be, would shoot a shaft into your soul that would fix you forever and send my image into eternal oblivion. So it's all very sarcastic hyperbole, and saying that, you know, Isabella's got this undying love. Caesar noticed that thing about rival as well. Like, Catherine's a married woman. She's married to Isabella's sister. Like, this is very strong language, particularly for the time. It would be seen as very immoral as well. Particularly as a woman, you know, they always judge a woman more harshly. Mr. Heathcliff, be kind enough to bid this friend of yours release me. She forgets that you and I are not intimate acquaintances, and what amuses her is painful to me beyond expression. So Isabella, there's some pathos for her here, as she's been humiliated in front of someone she does admire. It's nasty, isn't it? I'm sure, you know, most people have been through a similar situation, and it is not nice. I'm not going to go on a sidetrack now. Anyway, so Isabella swears that the love Edgar has for me is nothing that she entertains for you. So again, it's all humiliating for Isabella there as well. And he stared hard at the object of discourse as one might do a strange, repulsive animal. A centipede from the Indies, for instance. So more natural references, but also this has got connotations of foreignness as well, so that fits in with Heathcliff's background as well, potentially, obviously, as an outsider. But a centipede from the Indies, as in a massive centipede, that, ooh, that's disgusting, you know, the kind of the viewpoint of people of the time. So, sorry, the door went then, so I had to make a bit of a break. So then we have a fight actually breaks out between Catherine and Isabella. Fight. She raised one finger off her arm, another closed down, and she could not remove the whole together. She began to make use of her nails. So this is Isabella fighting back. Now, when I first read the novel myself, I always used to think of Isabella as quite a weak character, like Edgar Linton. But actually, I don't think she is. So when you look at it, look at this. So there's a tigress, exclaimed Mrs. Linton. So that's Catherine. But interesting, I think she's actually a lot tougher than she seems. And we'll see that later on in the novel as well. I think there's a bit of fire in her, actually, for everything. And vixen face, that's a female fox. So it's got connotations, again, of wildness. So she's prepared to fight quite savagely there with Catherine there as well. And look, Heathcliff, there are instruments that will do execution. You must beware of your eyes. I'd wrench them off her fingers if they ever menaced me, he answered brutally, when the door had closed after her. So Shumi leaves. Look at that as well. So again, more threat of violence and Heathcliff's own physicality there as well. I don't know what's happened to the pages here, but we'll manage. I like her too well, my dear Heathcliff, to let you absolutely seize and devour her up. So, again, Catherine, a bit inconsistent here. So, on one hand, she humiliated Isabella, But you could argue maybe this is for the greater good, because you say she's trying to protect her from Heathcliff. It's not a completely convincing argument, is it really? I like to let you absolutely seize and devour her up, and devour again has got connotations of predators and wolves and things. You'd hear odd things if I lived alone with that mawkish waxen face. The most ordinary would be painted on its white the colours of the rainbow, and turning the blue eyes black every day or two, they detestably resemble Linton's. So there is a real threat of violence here. He's saying, like, her beautiful pale face would be all the colours of the rainbow because I'd beat her up. So it's pretty shocking there, isn't it? But remember, unreliable narrators as well. So again, don't always see everything as we've got here as face value, but just bear that in mind. But I think if you're talking about Heathcliff and violence, it's a good quotation there as well. And also his hatred of Edgar Linton, because she looks like he detests her for that reason. They are dove's eyes, angels. She's her brother's heir, is she not? He asked after a brief silence. So yeah, there's a bit of a cash opportunity here. His visits were a continual nightmare to me, and I suspected to my master also. His abode at the Heights was an oppression past explaining. I felt that God had forsaken the stray sheep there to its own wicked wanderings, and an evil beast prowled between it and the fold, waiting his time to spring and destroy. So there's a nice extended metaphor Bronte uses there of Heathcliff as a terrible, fearsome predator stalking his way across the landscape. So we can see some real disruption here. And there's also an interesting parallel to Heathcliff's first appearance in the novel, when he, well, not his first appearance actually, his first appearance in the timeline, when he came into Wuthering Heights as a child and disrupted life there. Now he's come away and he's come back as a gentleman. He's more kind of adapted, I suppose. He's evolved in some ways to be more adapted to life at Thrushcross Grange, and he's come there and he's really disrupting everything there. So Bronte's deliberately constructed a similar parallel. Remember what I said about the novel would be kind of broken up into different volumes. So it's a nice little parallel there, isn't it? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And again, like, subscribe, comment, notification bell, all that helps me out. Please watch the other videos as well, any that are useful to you. I hope you found this one useful, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.